Okay, so cute little video. I love Bob's Burgers. If I can find a video and send it to you, I will. Okay. Now we're going to look at, now that we understand how we are on our, internal mindset, let's look at how we apply this to outside and people, places, and things. Okay. Let's be honest, society, systems, everything that, how we exist, we are influenced by. All right. History shows us that that's just, there's history from, you know, decades ago that's still affecting us. Doesn't matter who you are or what you do, all this stuff, it all affects us in some way. The best way to get through all of this is to kind of start recognizing, how are we reacting to things and what's our mindset on that? Because here's the thing, and you're going to notice this as we cover certain topics that maybe you feel uncomfortable about, is your urge is to be like, I just don't want to hurt someone's feelings, so I don't want to talk about it. Sometimes we just have to talk about it so we can recognize how it might feel to somebody else, okay? Cultural competency is, examining our own attitudes and values and how we get these values, like where do these come from? And then how are we working with others when it comes to these values? Because sometimes our values hinder other people's values. That's on both ends. That other person that you're talking to, they have values too, that they hold very close to their heart. We have to recognize that, okay? We'll talk about fear and trauma next week and how we have reactions to people based on that. Majority of the time, I'll just tell you, if you have a knee-jerk reaction to hate something, it's usually fear. Okay, so just think about that. If we're covering a topic and you hate it, ask yourself, where's the fear? Ta-da! Okay, when we talk about cultural competency, it's a very similar concept where how do we have a fixed mindset towards something versus how can we have a growth mindset towards it? There are going to be 3 myths that I want you to read. And if you have to read them a couple times over and over, just kind of get a general idea. What are these myths and how can I apply them? That's what I want you to do. Okay. So I want you to break free from the idea that it's always been that way. And I want you to break away from that's the way my family did it. That's the way so and so did it. That's the way we've always done it. That's actually a fallacy. And if ever you take my English 11 class, we'll talk about that, right? But that's a fallacious way of arguing about why something should be the way it is still, right? Despite, again, when we talk about critical thinking, the more information we get, the more we apply it, and then things are going to have to change. That's just the way it is. Things will not stay the same. In life, things will not stay the same. And you just have to be okay with that. Some of you are like, oh, I don't like that. It's just going to have to be that way. And the more you're fluid and understanding that things change, the more you will handle life a lot easier. So, from experience, trust me, I know, born and raised in paradise. So, when that burnt down for me, I'm like, oh, shit changes. Like the thing that I always thought was going to be there isn't there anymore really helped me change how I looked at the world and how I have a better detachment of things. And it's weird to say that it really helped me see the world a little different. So as we move forward, recognize that it will not always be the same way. It will need to change because we're humans, we're evolving. That's just life, okay? There's also the thought I can be any way I choose and free myself from the things I felt obligated to. I want you to think that I can be any way I choose and free myself from the things that I felt obligated to. All right, think of what you feel obligated to. What gets in your way of being free to be understanding or compassionate or willing to listen and hear new things? Okay, what gets in your way? And majority of it's fear. Fear can be, I don't know, maybe you're afraid you're going to go to hell if you whatever, right? And for me, growing up, I remember a lot of the things that I feared was I was afraid I was going to go to hell. And then, as you get older and you start to, dive into more religions and understanding of life, and you just kind of go, oh, well, I was young. I recognize that. And I'm willing to be open-minded to new things, right? So who knows? Anyway, this is my experience. I have been doing life a lot. I've seen a lot of things. To masters helps, but it was mostly life experience that helps me go, oh, it's important to find the humanity within each person. That's what I'm ultimately looking for. When we are given these information, look at the humanity. Okay? All right. So, myth number 1, I want you to recognize it implies that mistakes or weaknesses or ignorance, it must be because we're not culturally competent after all, right? So say you are having a discussion with somebody on something, whether it's certain race relations or religion or whatever, and you make a mistake and you're like, oh, and you get really mad at yourself. Like, I can't believe I did that. Well, a fixed mindset would hate ourselves and I don't get it. I don't get it. And just throw your hands up. Pause, take a minute, recognize the fear. And the fear comes from a fixed mindset, a fear of being wrong. It's okay to be wrong. If you're dealing with a subject that you don't really know, then it's okay to pause and be wrong and let someone else kind of guide you and not take offense, right? It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to not know. We don't know all the things. Other people don't know all the things. We only know as much as we know. Ta-da. So if you're looking at something and you feel like, I just don't know, I don't know, whatever, and you get really angry, pause and ask yourself, okay, how do I look at this with a growth mindset? All right. Look at it where mistakes or not, right? Whether or not we're making mistakes, we can always change our behaviors. How do I know? I used to have roller disco birthday parties that we'd all get drunk and go skating over in Cal Skate. And I would do costumes in one year. Forgive this. Oh, I can't even believe I'm admitting this. We did cowboys and Indians. Yes, I know. Wildly inappropriate. I get it now. So, that being the case, I dressed up as a Native American and I had this big old, what do you call it? A war bonnet is what they call it. And I made it and I was so into it and I made it all spiritual. I get it. I recognize where I'm wrong. I'm mortified to say it, but I'm willing to say it to let you know that sometimes we do these things. Okay. And I remember I skated around in this slutty little outfit with this thing on, and then we went to the bars and blah blah. And later on social media, someone had seen the pictures and they posted, whoa, this is like wild appropriation. Like, do they have any idea what they've done? And here's me, I did it spiritually. They have no idea what I was doing. No, Kylene, you have no idea what you were doing. My first instinct was defensiveness, right? Because I didn't feel that I was doing anything wrong. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wasn't trying to hurt anybody. All right, so intent does not negate harm. My intentions, whatever they were, does not negate the fact that I still hurt someone, okay? And it was wildly inappropriate. So it took a little while for me to kind of like figure this out. And randomly, I'm going to show you the video when we cover appropriation. I saw this video and I was watching it. Or maybe it was an article, but I remember the video stood out to me. And I was watching this article, or watching this video, reading this article going, oh wow. And it was an article about on the festivals, and I think it was Lana Del Rey who was wearing her, war bonnet. And the reason why it's so inappropriate, and I will tell you, is war bonnets are used by certain cultures and certain tribes, and they are meant for men only to become chiefs. It's like a big deal. So everything I did pretty much defeated like this whole beautiful ceremonious thing because I wanted to feel cute and sexy, right? So that's appropriation. It was like I was benefiting by harming what the point of someone else's culture is. And I recognize that. And I'm like, sorry. And so I spend, majority of my, daily life trying to make sure that I don't do that. And, when I recognize it, I have a conversation and I try and be as respectable to all as I possibly can. It's real easy. Like a lot of people it feels like so much work. It's not. It's recognizing you've done wrong and you just don't do it again. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Like if your instinct is to be angry at not knowing something and mad that someone's calling you out on it, just pause and go, well, if you're mad, well, one, that's your privilege, just as a heads up. And it's also a chance for you to go, oh, sorry, no big deal, I won't do it again. And that's it. It's as simple as that. So that's that difference between growth mindset and fixed mindset. Just recognizing, we're going to make mistakes. Society allows for us to have, a lot of inappropriate behaviors that we can turn around. Okay, so just recognize that. And no one's going to hate you for it if you're willing to go, oops, sorry. Okay. All right, so fixed mindset, myth number 2. This myth leaves us afraid to speak our minds, right? A lot of people are like, oh, I can't say what I want. I'm being cancel culture. Don't do that. And forgive me in my tone on that. But it's not cancel culture. It's just recognizing culture. That's it. It's like, I'm just telling you, it's not that big of a deal. Okay, so fixed mindset leaves us afraid to speak our minds for fear of public shaming. Okay, the goal here is, it's not that it's not that you need to not speak what you're trying to do, but it's recognizing when, if your speech is obviously hateful and not willing to listen to others, then yeah, people are probably going to call you out on that. So it's okay if you make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, dude. I post those pictures of me and that outfit on social media, and did people call me out? Hell yeah. Did I take offense? Absolutely. But that mistake does not define me. That mistake is something that I can look at and go, you know what? I totally did. Now what? And move forward. Okay. And also, when others make mistakes, we're likely to respond with patience. Okay. And a desire to teach and be understanding, and that it's possible to dislike an action without disliking the person. Okay. And my friend, we've talked about this all the time. She had this Hawaii, this party where it was like a luau and it had all the plastic skirts and bras and stuff. And later she's like, oh my God, Kylene, I did not realize what I was doing, Mom. She's like, I can't believe I didn't say anything. And I was like, it's not for me to sit here and make you feel bad. It's just about me having patience and understanding. And when she and I have the conversation, she'd go, oh, because I didn't talk about her party. I've talked about other things. And that's when it came to her. She's like, I didn't realize. I'm all, it is what it is. And now she's very mindful of it. Very simple. We don't have to make people feel bad. We just have to have patience and understanding, and have patience and understanding for ourselves too, right? We don't know all the things, and we don't have to be mad at people for mistakes. We don't have to hold it against them. We don't have to hate them, just the actions, right? And hate's even not even the right word. We can just dislike someone's actions, but still like the person. Absolutely love my friend, would never hold it against her. Again, her intent was not to be harmful. Whether or not that caused harm is a difference. So anyway, again, it's okay to make mistakes. They don't define us. For a growth mindset, just make sure that we understand that good people, all people make mistakes. That's human nature. We learn from mistakes. Majority of the time, we learn more from mistakes than we do from doing something right. So it's okay to make mistakes, okay? Again, don't dislike the person, just dislike the action, okay? People grow, people change, and to hold those resentments is just unhealthy. Just in general, hating someone, it's a lot of energy. It's easier to love people than it is to hate, right? So the psychology behind hate is not finite. Hate is, you just can't keep it going. But love does. Love for some reason keeps going. And I know a lot of you are like, oh, you're a hippie, you have all these things that you're, ooey gooey conversation. Go with me on it. Trust me on this. When you start to change the way you see things, it changes the way you react to things. And it's just going to bring you hopefully more peace and less urge to hate. That's my ultimate goal. That's what this class is about. Recognizing ourselves, loving ourselves so that we can love others. Okay? All right. Myth number 3, and then I'm going to start closing it up. Myth number 3 is a myth that leaves us slipping into complacency and clinging to a false sense of mastery, right? We assume we know everything, and how dare you tell me otherwise, right? So when you fall into that, you become reluctant to look for authentic understanding and growth, right? So if I were to say I know all these things about this, that means I'm not willing to take in new information. So then I've no longer become a critical thinker. I'm just stubborn and me, right? So growth mindset is not, a fixed mindset is not willing to recognize where you can still grow. We can always still grow. Like, that's just life. As humans evolve, so do our minds, right? So you should always be willing to be open to new things. Hence this class. Just be open. That's all I'm asking. Okay. For the growth mindset, when it comes to looking at these complacencies, we must be willing to engage into regular learning, questioning, and engaging across differences, right? So in this class, we're going to be seeing things that, again, maybe you might not want to hear, maybe you might not want to look at, maybe you just don't. Just go with it, okay? It doesn't have to be hate-filled. It just has to go, this is what I see, this is what I recognize, this is where I'm willing to grow, and this is where I'm willing to ask some questions. Like, to be honest, we just don't know. And maybe you have to ask the question. Is it the wrong question? We don't know. You have to ask it first. No, there's no such thing as a wrong question. It's just more about recognizing where, whatever the answer is, just be willing to listen to it and engage in it, okay? All right. Differences can only decrease how much our bias and prejudice show up in our daily thoughts, words, and actions. Okay, so the more you start to understand, the more you start to recognize differences, the more you're able to understand other people. And that's what we want to do here. Okay, we accept reality, we just keep practicing. Okay. And that's the thing. As more reality sets in, and this is really hard, especially when you saw that video on oatmeal, where we have these things that we grew up and we're told this is how it is, this is how it should always be. If you don't believe this, you're going to hell, or whatever it is. I say that because that's what that was my experience. If you don't believe in this, you're going to hell. And I'm like, I don't want to go to hell. And then as I got older and I started taking down the walls of this house and said, screw it, I'm starting over. I don't like this living in fear. I hate it. I hate being miserable. And I don't like the way I feel towards others. I don't want to feel this way anymore. So when I broke down those walls, I started seeing new things. I'm like, oh, okay. Your differences, my differences, that's okay. And then we just kind of come together. And again, it's not that we dislike necessarily people. Maybe we just dislike maybe their actions or things that are harmful in our opinions, right? So anyway, whole point here, be open-minded. All right. So again, our whole goal in this entire semester is going to be composition, right? So composition is literacy and identity. And how do we understand what our literacy and our identity is? Well, we'll talk more about identity in a little bit. Literacy is your ability to critically think and your experience, right? Those two go together. So everything you've done in your life is how you are a composer, okay? Think about that, because we are going to be writing a narrative. And then from there, we're going to get into research. Okay, so I'm going to be throwing a lot of things at you. And I hope that you are willing to just try something new, see how it feels, and please utilize your growth mindset in this class and trust that nothing I do in this class is intended to upset or hurt anyone. It's just for us to go, oh, I didn't know. That's cool. All right. Or maybe not necessarily what I believe, but okay. All right. And then we're going to be very respectful, especially in the discussion. So that being the case, in our discussion, please make sure for discussion number one, that you give kind of like your own personal experiences in this. Like, maybe did someone tell you, oh, you're so smart at this. And then maybe you're like, oh, the second it was starting to get hard, you started to not do it anymore. And then how can you push past your fixed mindset and get into a growth mindset? This could be anything. It could be work. It could be school. It could be, maybe how you're playing music or write. I don't know, anything in your experience that you could think of where you have a fixed mindset. What frustrates you? All right. And do you feel like maybe your upbringing, maybe teachers, maybe family, friends, people who maybe kind of influenced your mindset in a good way, bad way? I don't know. Good and bad's not really the right word. Influenced you to become more of a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. Okay. And why do you think that is? Okay. When you are responding to your discussions, please make sure it is not a simple sentence. I want you to use an introductory phrase. I'll give you an example of that, where you introduce the information. Use quotes. Quotes will always validate your point. And I'm going to be writing in there, make sure you validate your point. So validating your point means you're pulling from the reading that emphasizes what you're trying to say. So please make sure you do that. Also make sure you're responding to 3 peers. I say that 1,000 times. And the reason why I say that is so that you get a chance to hear what other people have to say versus you just saying whatever it is you want without listening to others around you. And the whole point of this class is expanding. Okay? All right. If you have any questions, please make sure you message me through Canvas. Don't email me because it gets lost in my email folders. But please reach out if you have questions. And I hope you've enjoyed this. See you next week.